Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. What do you get when you mix unresolved family drama, a trust fund for mental health, and one deeply entitled sister? A whole mess of lies, betrayal, and a forged invoice for fake rehab. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. I was adopted, abused, and put in a trust to survive. My bio sister just tried to steal it all. My 38-year-old female family is a little messed up. I essentially have had 5 parents and 3 different groups of siblings. It's a bit much. As a child, I was living in the U.S. with my adoptive parents, and a lot of crap went down that wasn't great, so I moved back to the U.K. when I was 9. I had a lot of trauma and the beginnings of a rather serious addiction, and so my U.S. dad set up a trust for me before he died so that anything mental health related was paid for and I didn't have to stress about being able to sort myself out as I got older. It's been rather handy over the last 30 years, paying for a home when I was a teenager, therapy, rehab, basically anything needed to help me not die. At some point in my teenage years, I made contact with my biological parents and their other kids and was welcomed back into the fold. Some of my full siblings had issues with this. Fair enough, it was a big change to everyone's lives. My little sister, now early 30s, apparently found it particularly hard, and so we've never got along and have been no contact for almost a decade. This has become particularly apparent in recent weeks after she contacted the solicitors who are in control of the trust, pretending to be from a rehab facility in the U.S. She sent them an invoice for a 3-month stay, requesting payment to the bank account of a friend of hers in the U.S. The first I heard about this was a phone call from said solicitors offering their commiseration that I was due to enter the facility, wishing me luck and double-checking the details. I am livid. This is tens of thousands of pounds that she's tried to steal from me. Money that she has absolutely no right to. She never met my adoptive parents. She's not owed any money from them. She's lived a perfectly normal life with both of her parents, her other siblings, holidays, uni paid for, no big dramas. And she thinks she can just take from me because she wants to buy a house and thinks I should help her out because I ruined her childhood. Except she can't even just ask. She has to try and steal it. I have no idea what to do about this, because if I go to the police, then it'll create even more drama in the family that I could do without, and I feel like that's exactly what she wants. Our parents will side with her, and she knows it. I don't want to give her the satisfaction, but I'm just so mad that she chooses this specific way to try and take what's not hers. It feels like such a low blow. Obviously, she's getting sweet FA, but WTF? Edit. My father had to bail me out of a crappy situation a couple years ago, which included getting a flight to another country to come and get me. Obviously, I insisted he accept reimbursement for his flights despite him not needing the money, so he would have the details of my solicitors and the fund from that time. My sister often visits my parents, so I suspect she would have seen the information in my dad's office at some point. I've certainly never mentioned the fund to any of my siblings. Update. So this got pretty overwhelming pretty quickly. I'm balancing getting things done and tied up with not losing my mind, which is always fun. Solicitors are reporting everything for me, as they're indeed required to do. Turns out I'd misunderstood and thought I had to get involved, but no, it's all on them. And I'm going to just let what happens happen. I'll be setting up a meeting at some point to go through all the transactions made over the last 20 years or so, just to make sure nothing else nefarious has gone on. If your parents side with her, that's also useful information. You cannot trust them and should be very careful around them. If not, just cut them off. Do not let these people treat you like this. Family or not, you deserve respect. And our second story. Customer has full-blown meltdown after I deny him private info. I used to work at one of the big 4 banks in Canada. Most days were relatively uneventful, routine transactions, regular clients, the occasional grumpy customer, but every so often something absolutely ridiculous would happen that made me question how some people function in society. This is one of those days. A young man walked into the branch. He was short, thin, maybe in his early 20s, and immediately looked like he was fuming. Face flushed, jaw clenched, shoulders tight. He was clearly upset before he even got to the counter. Still, I put on my best customer service face and greeted him politely, trying to gauge what kind of storm I was about to step into. He leaned in and said, "I need to see my girlfriend's credit card statements." Here we go, another jealous boyfriend thinking we'd just hand over private financial records like it's no big deal. I squared my shoulders and calmly told him, "I'm sorry, but I can't provide that information unless your girlfriend is present or has given us written authorization." He looked at me like I'd just spoken Martian. "But I'm her boyfriend," he said, as if that was supposed to mean something. Trying to stay professional, I asked, "How do I know that's true?" He snapped back, "Because I'm telling you." Ah, of course, silly me for needing actual proof instead of just trusting some random guy with wild eyes. Sensing that logic wasn't going to get me far, I decided to try a different tactic. Maybe empathy would get through to him. I asked, "How would you feel if your girlfriend came in asking to see your credit card statements?" Without missing a beat, he screamed, "I'd be fine with it." Then, no exaggeration, he proceeded to have a full-blown tantrum in the middle of the branch. He stomped his feet, threw his arms in the air, and unleashed a 5-minute profanity-laced meltdown. It was like watching a tiny raging goblin perform some kind of ritual dance of entitlement and fury. Everyone in the branch stopped what they were doing to stare. Client, staff, even the security guard were just watching this guy throw a fit like a toddler who'd been denied candy. I stood there quietly waiting for him to burn himself out. Eventually he stopped, took a deep breath, adjusted his jacket, then calmly walked back up to my counter like nothing had happened, and repeated, "I'd like to see my girlfriend's credit card statements, please." I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Sir, it would be illegal for me to give you that information without her permission." That was the last straw. He exploded again, this time launching into a string of insults and profanity that would have made a sailor blush. Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard it nearly popped off the hinges. I just stood there and thought, and that's why I love my job. Actually, no, I thought. Thank God I don't work there anymore. If anyone ever came in trying to see my accounts, I'd expect the bank to flag/freeze my account and contact me immediately. I don't even know what the proper protocol is, but I'd like to be made aware that an angry person's trying to get access to my statements. That's insane behavior, and the account holder's safety may be in jeopardy. Crazy people do crazy things. And our last story. Nightmare neighbors turned our dream neighborhood into chaos. My partner and I were deliberate when we picked this neighborhood. We live in a low cost of living state, but we purposefully chose one of the more expensive communities. The schools were great, the HOA actually enforced rules, and the property taxes, while steep at $10K a year for our modest 1,600 square foot home, helped fund parks, trails, and amenities we genuinely used. It felt safe, quiet, friendly. When we first moved in, it was exactly that. On one side of us was a guy who used his house as a second home. He was barely there, and when he was, he kept to himself, super respectful and quiet. On the other side, the house had been converted into a small daycare. The kids played during normal business hours, the parents picked them up, and the place went dark at 6 p.m. All of our neighbors had kids, and on weekends we'd hang out on driveways while the kids ran around with chalk and scooters. Then the daycare shut down. The owner turned it back into a residential home and tried to rent it out. The first set of tenants were junkies. That's not even speculation. Emergency services were at the house more than the mailman. 4 or 5 dogs lived inside, left unattended for weeks at a time. When they finally got evicted, they left behind ruined carpets, destroyed drywall, and dogs that had literally chewed through the window screens. The landlord tried to sell the property, but no one in their right mind was touching it at the price he wanted. Then came the second wave of renters. We would call them shameless. It's impossible to say how many people actually live there. Some days there were 6, other days closer to 10. The house has 2 bedrooms. That's it. They also had at least 5 pit bulls, aggressive, loud, unleashed. More than once, they broke boards off our shared fence trying to get at my service dog while we sat quietly in our backyard. My partner and I literally had to sprint inside when 2 of their dogs got loose and charged towards us. We reinforced the entire fence line ourselves, out of pocket. We did some digging. Turns out at least 2 adults living there had criminal records longer than a CVS receipt. Multiple felonies, aggravated assault, domestic violence, B&E, you name it. Their yard looked like a junkyard. 4 rusted-out cars, trash everywhere, furniture in the grass. It was like the purge met hoarders. Police and EMS were regular visitors. Sometimes someone OD'd. Sometimes it was just the Karens screaming at the sky in the driveway, shirtless and drunk. No one let their kids play outside anymore. The house across the street went vacant because the family felt too unsafe with kids. We stopped trying to start a family. Not next to this. Then, while speaking with someone in code enforcement, we found out the house had been condemned years ago. Somehow the landlord was illegally renting it out without a valid certificate of occupancy. There was no legal lease. That was our in. We filed formal complaints with code enforcement, the fire marshal, and the county health department. We gave them photos of the overcrowding, the piles of trash, the dogs, the broken fence. We sent in ring cam footage of the screaming, the fights, the dogs charging our property. It was no longer just annoying neighbors. This was an illegal rental. This was a public safety hazard. It took 3 weeks. Then we saw the first inspection truck, then another, and another. The health inspector came out with a clipboard and a look of pure disgust on his face. A week later, a notice was taped to the door, unfit for occupancy. They had 5 days to vacate. They screamed, they cursed. Karen shouted that she was going to sue the entire block. One of the adult sons punched the front window out of rage, slicing his hand open. The police showed up again. That part was almost routine by now. But they were gone. Boxes, trash bags, a U-Haul with no taillights. But they were gone. Within a week, the HOA had the property boarded up. Within a month, the landlord sold it to a flipper for pennies on the dollar just to get rid of it. It's being gutted right now. New siding, new roof, total rehab. Our property values are climbing again. My partner and I are finally talking seriously about starting our family. The nightmare's over. And we didn't even have to move. Once a property slides into illegal occupancy and code violations, neighbor-to-neighbor requests won't fix anything. The only leverage that matters is documentation and the municipal enforcement chain. If I'd been in your situation, I'd have done almost the same thing. Only thing I might have added is looping in animal control earlier, given the aggressive dogs and broken fencing. That can accelerate action when public safety statutes trigger faster timelines than housing codes alone. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.